Hello, everyone. My name is Jess, and it's such a privilege to stand up here. It's a bit bright, so it's going to take me some time to get used to it. But don't you just love equips? It's a time of hearing God through worship, through preachers. And just earlier, I was walking in the kitchen, and they were busy mopping and worshiping while they were mopping, and I just thought that was so precious. I've been coming to Equip since I was since I was in high school. And they have a special way of leaving a mark on you. So be expectant for God to move, for God to speak, today and the next few days. As I said, God can speak and wants to speak to us in so many different ways. One of the ways he often speaks to me is through pictures. Sorry, guys. And when I was praying for today, I saw a picture of a mountain. It was a beautiful mountain, the kind that you just want to explore. But at the base of the mountain, I saw people walking in circles, round and around, lap after lap. Same ground, same view, same place. And I felt this question for us today. Why are you circling something you were meant to climb? God has more for us than standing at the base of the mountain. He invites us to move with him, to explore, to trust, to step into the new. But often we stay circling what he meant for us to enter. And this is exactly what we see in Joshua 1. God speaks to Joshua right after the wilderness season, after Moses has died and a new generation stands at the edge of the promised land. The book of Joshua is not just history, it's a real God working with real people. God has already promised them the land. It wasn't uncertain or unclear. He had already spoken. It was already theirs. And yet, although the promise had been given, a whole generation still lived short of entering it. Not because God was absent or silent or unfaithful, but because they had become familiar with wandering, staying in patterns that kept them from moving forward. And I wonder if that's some of us today. There are areas where we're still circling what God has already made available. Maybe it feels like dryness on the inside. You feel tired or empty or stuck. Maybe it's thoughts you keep returning to, fear, anxiety, overthinking. Maybe it's habits or patterns you can't seem to break. Or maybe it's quieter than that, feeling stuck in yourself, your plans, your control. But God is not confused about your life, and he is not withholding what he has already promised. He is still calling you forward, still inviting you into what he has for you. Because he has more than this, more than survival, more than wandering, more than staying where you are. Calling begins with following him. So how do we actually move? Because calling is not just about leaving behind something, and it's not about figuring out what God is doing. Calling begins with following him. Before God calls us into anything, he calls us to himself, to trust him, to stay close to him, to move when he moves. And that's exactly what we see in Joshua 3, verse 1 to 5. Let's read that together. Early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites set out from Shittim and went to the Jordan, where they camped before crossing over. After 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God and the Levitical priests carrying it, you are to move out from your position and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. But keep a distance of about 2,000 cubits between you and the ark. Do not go near it. The ark represented God's presence, his holiness, his authority, his nearness, his leadership. And the instruction was simple. Follow the ark. Not your instincts, not your timing, not your own plan. Because you don't need to know the way when you know the one who is leading you. And I love what Joshua says. You have never been this way before. I think we can all relate to that in some way. At least I can. The last 2 years haven't looked anything like I expected. And honestly, that's often what calling feels like. It doesn't come with all the answers. It's choosing to trust God enough to follow him, even when you can't yet see where he's leading you. Consecration before breakthrough. In verse 5, it says, Joshua told the people, consecrate yourself, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. To consecrate means to set yourself apart for God. And in Joshua 3, the people of Israel are standing at the edge of the Jordan River, right in front of the promise, but not yet in it. Before the river parts, before anything changes around them, Joshua gives this instruction: consecrate yourselves. It's a call to turn their hearts back to God, to surrender again, to make room for what he is about to do. It's an invitation to say, God, here I am. We often want it the other way. We want God to move first, and then we respond. But here the call comes before the breakthrough. They are still at the river. They are still waiting. They are still unsure of what happens next. And yet God asks for trust. Nothing changed around them immediately, but something began to change within them. And I think this is what consecration is really about: learning to trust God for who he is. To trust that he is good, that he is faithful, that he can be trusted even when we cannot yet see what he is doing. Sometimes breakthrough comes quickly, sometimes it doesn't. And maybe that is what God is forming in us. And not just people who believe for breakthrough, but people who trust him before they see anything change. And I've been learning what that kind of trust really means in a deeply personal way. 2 years ago, I got neurological Lyme disease, and if you don't know what that is or what it looks like, for me personally, it's a lot of nerve pain and neurological complications. A couple of months ago, I was having a particularly terrible day with my pain. Nothing was helping. I was lying in bed, trying to sleep, trying to calm my body down and praying. God, would you please heal me? Crying out to him, knowing he knows my pain, knowing he loves me, knowing he can heal, begging him, God, would you just lift the pain, even just slightly? He didn't heal me that day, but as I lay there crying out to him, I became so aware of his presence in an incredibly comforting, tangible way. It felt like he was sitting with me in that room, and I felt him say, I'm with you. And I've felt challenged by that moment many times since. Do I want what God can do for me more than I want him? Do I want his hand more than I want his heart? And despite not knowing what the future holds, do I trust him? Over my pain, over my understanding, do I trust him with my life? And maybe that's where some of you are today. Maybe you're in a season where you can't see a way forward. Maybe you're waiting for God to move, waiting for clarity, waiting for something to change. And maybe the invitation today is not to first understand, but simply trust him. So perhaps the invitation today is simply this: to stop circling what God has already called you to step into, to consecrate yourselves again before him, to say, God, here I am, I'm available, I trust you, even when the way ahead feels unclear, even when nothing around you has changed yet, because his presence is not only what leads us forward, it is what sustains us as we follow him. Thanks, guys.